Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett.
And I'm Kevin.
And we are your hosts. Movie Club is the show where we pick a movie every week and discuss it, just like a book club. On today's show, we are covering the sci-fi classic 2001: A Space Odyssey. Our thoughts and more coming up on Movie Club. Released in 1968, 2001: A Space Odyssey was directed by Stanley Kubrick and stars Cara Delia, Gary Lockwood, and William Sylvester. When a mysterious artifact is uncovered on the moon, a spacecraft manned by 2 humans and 1 supercomputer is sent to Jupiter to find its origins. It is ranked 97 on IMDb's Top 250 and has a 4.3 out of 5 on Letterboxd and is ranked 160 on its Top 250. It was nominated for 3 Academy Awards for Best Art Direction, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Director. It won 1 Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. Before we dive into this movie, though, and spoil the whole thing for you, we want to issue a spoiler alert. So if you haven't seen the movie and want to in any capacity, go ahead and pause the video, go and watch it, and then come back, because we would not like to ruin this movie for you. But, of course, stay tuned to the end of the show to find out what movie we're covering next week, because it's going to stay pretty familiar with the director we're choosing. Alrighty, Kevin, so we are here with 2001: A Space Odyssey. And this was my pick this week, and I'm going to tell you right now, it is for the very simple reason that it is widely considered to be one of the best movies of all time, and because of that, you haven't seen it. And I want you to watch it to see, to kind of expand your repertoire of the kind of classic movies that you haven't seen. So, now that you have finally seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, from now on, we'll just call it 2001. Now, seeing it for the first time, what are your general thoughts before we kind of dive in?
General thoughts, it's a fantastic looking movie for when it came out, 1968?
68.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. There are some drawbacks that I will talk about when we get into non-spoilers. But it was a good movie. Sometimes I don't like when movies make you think a lot, and this movie really makes you think. So I had to watch some videos on how to make me not think about the movie and just watch it as it is. But that's okay. Some movies do make you think a lot more. Yeah. But that's what's the fun of it. You don't get a clear answer on what is happening. So I enjoyed it.
I feel like we've regressed slightly. We're almost at 100 episodes, and the fact that you said you had to watch videos to make you think less about this when you should be thinking more about it, it kind of hurts. Not gonna lie.
Okay, well, no, I couldn't, maybe not less, but make me understand what they were trying to show. I see what
you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like,
poor wording on my part.
It's like you're supposed to be thinking about these movies when you watch them. That's the whole reason for the show. But no, but yeah, like it's funny that you mentioned drawbacks, because I'm just gonna go ahead and spoil what I think about this movie. There are no drawbacks to me. Like, there's not a single one. Like, this is a perfect film. It is one of the few arguably perfect movies, in my opinion. And because of not only what it attempts to do and the story that it tells, but also how much it influenced film for decades upon decades afterward. So, there's a lot going on here, but we'll go ahead. And that's kind of actually where I want to dive into first. So you mentioned that there are some drawbacks to the film. And you kind of mentioned that it kind of was a little perhaps ambiguous in the story that it's trying to tell, as potentially one of them. But what were some of the drawbacks that you had kind of alluded to earlier?
For me, it takes too long to start. I know the beginning is very iconic, and monkey find bone use as weapon, which is really cool. The monolith, is it a monolith?
The monolith,
yeah. The monolith was really, really cool as well. But I don't think I needed to see how the monolith helped the monkeys make sense of how to use it as a weapon and stuff like that. That's what I was understanding. It was, they found this. It made them much smarter, but not too much smarter, if that makes sense. And then it just cuts to 2001. There's no in between. There's no like little gaps in there to show you the evolution of humanity and how we got to the moon and how we're gonna get to Jupiter and stuff. So, but uh, it was a little slow on that part just because there was no dialogue. It was just all scenic and everything, which it looked fantastic. It looked beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but it just what didn't do anything for the story that it's trying to portray.
Sure. And I can kind of see where you're going with that. I think, I think that there is beauty in its ambiguity. One of the ways that I kind of look at this movie, and how you mentioned it kind of just jumps forward, which literally probably the most famous match cut in film is the bone transitioning to the satellite. Is one of the most iconic shots in film. But I think that what you're seeing here are the three stages of humanity. You're seeing the beginning of humanity when we start to use tools as in weapons and things like that. You're seeing the middle stage of humanity, which is everything that happens through the current timeline of the movie. Kind of reaching to space and everything. And then you see the end of humanity as we know it at the end of the film when, oh my God, the person's name, this is going to kill me. The main gentleman, Bowman, the main astronaut, when he transitions into the Star Child.
Yes.
Because that's leaving humanity as we know it behind. And it's just becoming like an immortal kind of space being. So
but
you're
why
seeing
does
the
it
stages of humanity.
But why does the star baby gaze down on Earth if we're already in the stars?
What do you mean?
Because at the end of the movie, he's looking down onto planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Why go back to a planet when we've already hit the stars and we're going to Jupiter? So why look backwards into if we were so far into the future? That's what I kind of got from it too. It's
kind of like, have you ever? Well, I mean, I don't know how. It's kind of the same. The way that it strikes me is, oh, look what I used. Look where I came from.
Okay.
This is where I came from. Or you can also look at it as, I finally hit the peak. Let me show the others the way.
Okay.
Kind of a thing. This movie toys with the negative or like the doom and gloom aspect, right? Like, because you've got Hal, the AI, who,
it's fantastic in this movie.
Hal is one of the best villains in film history.
Yeah.
And we'll get to him in a minute. But you get the doom and gloom of that. But then also it is hopeful. The ending that humanity can still evolve and that we are going places that are relatively unknown. And that's the job of science fiction, is to kind of, think about where we're heading. Hopefully hopefully it'll be more than babies in an embryo. But the movie is so much more visual in the way that it tells everything. And I think that is why it not only stands out for its time, but also continues to stand out. Quite possibly one of the best sequences in any movie ever. There's a couple in this movie, but the main one for me is when the two astronauts go into the capsule to speak away from Hal.
Yes.
And did you pick up on what was happening there?
Well, they were trying to disconnect Hal. They were trying to.
So they're in the pod of the capsule or whatever, and they're speaking so that Hal doesn't hear them.
Yes.
However, if you notice the way the camera is doing.
Well, can't Hal read lips as well?
Exactly. And you only learn that because the camera is showing you, which is just so brilliant that he knows exactly what's going on, even though they're trying to stay away from him, which is brilliant. And it's such a masterful way to show, not tell. Yeah. Which
because you don't get to hear their plan, right? You never hear exactly what they're gonna do, but you just see them and you're being Hal for a second. And some of these shots you are Hal, and that's what I kind of liked is he's more lifelike in that way. He's not just as soon as I saw Hal, all I thought was a Ring doorbell the entire time. But but he's so, even when he's getting turned off and he's like, no, please don't. It's like he's so monotone, but in when I was seeing him, like, oh my gosh, my heart hurts for him because he's trying so hard not to uh basically get deleted.
Yeah,
And it's like, oh, I shouldn't have feelings for him because of how bad he is, but he's doing his best, if that makes sense.
he has
And
the same survival instinct that a human would.
yeah,
We'll talk
exactly.
about this, please don't. Like, and then
Yeah.
obviously him singing Daisy, which, fun fact, the song that he kind of sings is one of the first things that any computer spoke in
Oh,
human history.
really?
Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
I think it's like Daisy Love Me Do. I forget the name of the song, but it's a creepy song, but it's the first one that a computer ever sung,
That's
or really
crazy.
any word that it spoke. So it's a kind of an interesting little Easter egg of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, that whole sequence is also fantastic, and it lends into like Hal isn't really a villain.
No.
I mean, he's just a perceived villain,
Mm-hmm.
because he takes rational or rash action. Excuse me. Um, but it's also, if you think about it, it's kind of similar to what happens in the beginning of the movie with the ape killing the other ape
Mm-hmm.
in
It's
order to
the
move forward.
exactly. It's the AI taking, well, not, I don't want to say taking advantage, but he has learned so much. He doesn't need humans anymore, pretty much.
Oh
He's
no, I'm
using,
saying that
oh,
Bowman killing him by like turning him off and everything, pulling all the things
mm,
out. It's the same thing as the ape earlier in the movie. He had to
true.
kill something else that posed a threat to move
Oh,
forward.
mm-hmm. Okay.
More storytelling.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But then also leads to one of my. I'm gonna keep saying this a lot. One of my favorite
Favorite.
scenes in any film, which is um, the entire like last 20 minutes of this movie.
Which is so trippy, first of all. But it's
Yes.
so, it's like, what is going on? But then you kind of, like, I still don't really fully understand what is going on. At the same time, I kind of do understand at the same time. It's
Yeah.
very weird about how you can perceive the ending of this movie.
Excuse me. So, what I would really recommend is there is a 2001: A Space Odyssey book, which was
Okay.
written by the same author that penned the script. So he wrote the script for the movie.
Hmm.
Wasn't as I mean, he was very proud of the movie, but was wanted to expand on it more and wrote the
Okay.
book. And so you do get a more full kind of idea of what's happening in the book,
Hmm.
which is slightly different than I think what happens in the movie. So I'm not going to spoil it here.
Okay.
But to me, um, in a way, he enters the monolith, right?
Hmm.
And I think that everything he sees in like the room he ends up in and all the colors and everything, I would like to think, and this is kind of really the first time I've really thought about this, so forgive me if I kind of come off a little unsure. It really feels like he died,
Yeah.
and the monolith not maybe didn't intentionally, but did kill him in order to help him move on to become the
Yeah.
Star Child.
Hmm.
And because of that, that's why you see an image which so many people would equate to like dying, right? The light from the end of the tunnel, kind of a thing,
Hmm.
right? Like you see that, and the way that that visual effect is done is super impressive. There is a Corridor Crew episode on it where they talk about how they did it, and I will let you watch that on your own time because it's fantastic. But the it really is kind of going towards the light, and then that room isn't necessarily heaven or anything. It's not like an afterlife. It is a waiting room, like
Mm-hmm.
while the body catches up to where your mind is, and so the
Mm.
mind is able to kind of exercise and rest and recover and recuperate. Like he's got the food, he's got the bed, he's got the
Hmm.
bathroom. Like this. Go ahead. It's like a waiting room for a doctor's office,
Yeah.
right? Instead of a doctor's office, it's your next self, your next life, and
Hmm.
so it's very out there.
It
And I
is.
think that a lot of first time viewers don't really understand how kind of weird this movie can be, or like how
Hmm.
or lofty or existential it can be. I think a lot of people remember Hal and the conflicts of everything inside the spaceship, but like it's really about evolution. It's about humanity moving forward, kind of where we were, where we are, and where we should or could be. And I think that kind of capstones it at the end. Yes, it's weird. Yes, it's really avant-garde. Yes, it's really kind of quirky. But did you ever lose interest during that last? It's like
No,
like
you didn't.
It holds your attention so well. And any other lesser movie, that would have been like a 2-minute sequence.
Yeah,
you waited on the lights or whatever, and then
the
just
room, and that's it. Yeah,
not even the room. Like he would have just been like
true.
all this like transformation, and all of a sudden he's the baby. So there is a lot more to it, which I really appreciate. Because again, lesser films that would be made today wouldn't do that.
Yeah, they would skip this in important, or kind of people would look at this as confusing, and people wouldn't get this. And okay, so let's take it out of this movie then.
Yeah.
Instead, they were like, let's put it in there to see. When I was watching the video, it was like some people hated this movie because it didn't give them what they wanted. It didn't give them a ending that was satisfactory to their liking.
Yes.
But I don't know who said it, and I forget the name, but they're like, who cares? I made this, and I think it's fantastic. You can take whatever questions you want, watch the movie again, and maybe you'll get your answer through the question that you're looking for.
This is one of those movies, like the movie we're talking about next week, which I'm not spoiling yet, that gets better every time you watch it. I will tell you, the first time I watched this movie, it was not a perfect movie to me. I thought it was boring, and I thought that it moved way too slowly. But every time I watched it, I picked up on something else, and I kind of created an idea. And even sitting here thinking about it, I just thought of something that I've never thought of before, which is that this is a science fiction movie, obviously, that was made during the Cold War. That is not a picture of a nation's exceptionalism.
You don't have a nation.
You don't see an American flag on every single ship, and or anything. There is really no country affiliations. So in many ways, it's kind of like a hopeful, almost like Star Trek type vision of what the future could be. That like we're beyond the need for like nationalism. Like it's not Russia, it's not the US, it's just humanity, which is also very different for its time. A lot of those movies were like, oh, it's only America or Russia. If the Russians are there first, we lose. Like,
Well, the thing is too, you could show this in another country, Britain, in England and Spain, and that can inspire a child to be an astronaut or something in the space realm, or even a filmmaker, because it doesn't associate with, like what you were saying, oh, this is a American 2001 A Space Odyssey. It is just 2001 A Space Odyssey, period, end of story. It can be anything and anybody, which is really cool. I guess I didn't really realize that either until you talked about it, because I'm like, oh yeah, they never really had like a flag, or they didn't get a mission statement from the Oval Office or the White House. It was just this. It was the mission, and somebody gave it to them, and that can be interpreted to anybody.
Yeah, and it's like I'm looking at the ship right now on Google just because I wanted to make sure, and it doesn't have any American flags or anything on it. The only thing that has anything is the commercial space flight vehicle, which is the Pan Am, which obviously Pan Am doesn't exist anymore, so it's kind of funny. But like it's a corporation. A corporation would still be there. A nation may not. So, but also that does remind me. I do want to touch on the beginning of this movie, or at least once we get into space, like some of the ahead of its time visuals.
Oh,
like the stewardess when she's walking and she kind of goes from one side to the other, and then like fantastic. There's the sequence where the pen is floating in front of the camera.
I was just thinking that. Yep.
Do you know how that was done?
I think I watched Corridor Crew on it, but I don't remember how they did it.
So it is literally the cleanest pane of glass you've ever seen, and they just stuck the pen onto it and moved it like this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's why she kind of like pauses when she picks up, because she has to like detach it without looking like she's detaching it. Because it goes like, okay, there we go, and like it's fucking beautiful, dude.
Well,
Like for its time.
that whole zero gravity sequence is interesting because it's turning the ship itself, but then when she starts walking and turning with it and to go into another room, which I thought that was interesting. They could have just made rooms on the side of the turning, when she turns around, but they put it one exactly where she needs to go, which is you wouldn't think about that now. You'd just be like, oh, rooms here, and then the spinny thing, and they're like, let's put a room in a spinny thing, so that it looks like its actual function, the functionality of it, it was really cool. It's just different. Again, like you said, it's ahead of its time.
Yeah, super far ahead of some. This movie would be treated as a much better film than when this film was treated at its release.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like this movie wasn't hated on its release. Obviously, it had some Oscar nominations, but it wasn't nominated for like Best Picture or anything, which it would have been now.
Oh
but,
yeah.
Like it's fascinating how it's gotten this better reputation over time, and so many people, so many filmmakers consider this to be one of the best films of all time, and they use it as inspiration to this day. There's parts of this that inspired Dune, like with from Denis Villeneuve. It's still being used as reference because it's that good.
Well, I mean, it doesn't feel like a cheap CGI movie from the 60s, and that's what's awesome about it. Like, the visual effects are just they're there, and like me just watching it for the first time, I was in awe about how they did everything in this movie, because I knew it was an older movie, and I was like, I thought it was the 70s, and then when I was doing it, when I was looking it up, I was like, oh, 1960. I'm like, well, I'm gonna probably find some like flaws or something in this. I'd be like, ooh, that wasn't good. I don't think I found any flaws that were like real bad in this movie.
Every visual effect holds up in this movie.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can tell the things are miniatures and stuff like that, but
that's what makes it awesome.
Exactly, it's a physical, tangible thing. And I'm not saying that CGI is bad. Like, CGI has done wonderful, miracle things, but there's just something to it. That's why, like, The Mandalorian recently went back to using practical miniature ships, because it makes a difference.
It does.
And people can tell.
And people can tell, like, when CG ships and stuff like that go on screen, I'm like, oh, okay, that's CG. With this one, I'm like, wow, I know somebody put the freaking time and effort into this little miniature that's just floating by a string in a pitch black dark room. But it's like, but that's what the magic is of this movie, and about movies that have that visual aspect of it. Like we just watched last week, Aliens. Fantastic looking movie is Alien. Fantastic looking movie, because everything's practical.
It still holds up.
And still if you showed this to somebody like today who didn't really know, like Stacy, show this to Stacy, don't tell her the year, and see how old when she thinks it. Yeah, exactly. Like, that would be so fun to see.
Oh yeah. But I like you mentioned, now that I'm thinking about it, there's only one thing that I would say doesn't really hold up, and I think it's the costumes for the apes in the beginning. They do look a little too costumey.
They are costumey, but I understood why they couldn't.
But that's why they did it at the time.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't affect the movie at all. It's just like,
no. I was like, oh, those are people in costumes, but they're portraying apes. I'm okay with it.
Exactly. Okay, Kevin, now it is time to get into our final thoughts and score. This was my pick this week. So I always forget who goes first. I'm just going to go first on this one.
Okay.
I think the 2001: A Space Odyssey is a masterpiece of science fiction filmmaking, but also visual storytelling. It is a cinematic marvel that I would say is so far ahead of its time, and there are so many aspects about this film that will linger with you long after the credits rolled. Like, there are still things I'm thinking about for the first time now, and this is like my 12th time watching this movie. So like, it's just one of those movies that gets better and better the more you watch it, like some of the best films of all time do. And because of that, I mean, I already mentioned it earlier, it's a perfect movie. It's 100 out of 100 for me. It's a 5-star film. It truly is one of the best films that humanity has ever made. It's in like the top 50, like 5 out, like it, it's up there. So
It's up there, Steve.
it's up there, Steve.
Yeah, so to go along with that, I give it an 85 out of 100. That's not a bad score. That's 4 stars for me. But this is my first time watching it. I could watch it again. It could bump up, could bump down. Probably gonna bump up though. Spoiler alert. But this is a great, fantastic movie made in the 1968, which looks like it could be made in like the early 2000s. And it's the visual effects hold up, the CGI holds up to an extent, but it's still fantastic the way it looks. The story behind it is very good about humanity evolving throughout this whole entire film. Hal is a great character in this movie, even though he's not a physical living being. He's an AI, but he's fantastic in this movie. Absolutely love him. He shows so much heart and passion, even just being a computer. And I feel like it's fantastic. I want to name my doorbell Hal now. But there was some moments I think that could be cut out, but as we were talking, it would hinder the performance of the movie throughout the whole thing. Like in my review, I feel like maybe a couple of the things with the monkeys could have been cut out, but that's showing the evolution about the monolith and everything like that. So again, 85 out of 100, not bad, but I think if I rewatch it again, I will pick up on some things that I will enjoy more, and possibly that score goes up for us.
There you go. But so, question now falls to you. What do you think of 2001: A Space Odyssey? We'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comment section down below. But remember, be respectful of one another, because one of you may be Hal and trying to kick the other out of the airlock. Who knows? But next week, we're sticking with Kubrick as we're going to the horror classic, The Shining. Perfect Christmassy season type movie, because it's going to be cold outside and cold in this movie. So make sure to watch it before next week so you're not spoiled if you've somehow never seen the film. But thank you so much for watching. Of course, we do have our live stream that goes live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're watching this the day that it comes out, we will not be streaming on Christmas Day. It'll be streaming on the 26th at 7 p.m. But of course, this show goes live every Friday at 4 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, just in time for your morning commute, journey, walk, whatever you want to call it. But that's going to be it. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, make sure to keep those eyes on the screen.